Why This Film, the podcast where we reach back into your childhood, pluck out a movie, give it a rewatch, and have a chat about it. I'm Emily Slade, and welcome back. You watched it so many times before, and now you're gonna watch it again. But it's been so many years since you last saw it, and now you show it to your friends, and they're like, what?
What am I watching?
Why this?
What is this?
Why this film? And I'm joined today by Jacob from the Bad Things podcast. Have I said that correctly?
You have indeed. Spot on.
Yes. Hooray! His movie choice is Wallace and Gromit and the Curse of the WereRabbit, 2005. The IMDb breakdown. Wallace and his loyal dog Gromit set out to discover the mystery behind the garden sabotage that plagues their village and threatens the annual giant vegetable growing contest. Why this film?
Why this film? A few things in this world bring me as much joy as Wallace and Gromit.
That's fair.
I watched them loads as a kid. I had all the three shorts as they were at the time on DVD.
Yeah.
And then when this came out in the cinema, it was like, I remember being a kid. 2005, I would have been 8 when this came out. So I remember, like, this was the first time something that, like, I had watched on TV or, like, DVD was getting, like, a big cinema release. And I was like, oh my god, I have to go and see this. I'm so excited. I remember going to the cinema and just, yeah, it was just everything I wanted it to be. And then going back and rewatching it as an adult, it holds up so well, and it's still really funny, but for, you know, different reasons as to where it's funny when I was a kid. And I just love the warmth of it, and I love how silly it is, and I love that Wallace and Gromit do this so well, where they take really sort of innocuous situations and they just make a sort of drama and a plot out of them. Like a giant vegetable competition is not an interesting premise for a film, but they manage to do so much with it because they've got some amazing minds at the Aardman team, and they just blow it out of the water every single time. And rewatching this film the other day, a couple of days ago, it is just such a well-written, funny, tense film. It's amazing that you know, the whole thing is made of clay and is about a big rabbit that eats some vegetables. It's just it's ridiculous, but I love it.
It's so true. I'd forgotten this movie existed, to be honest. I was the same. I grew up with Wallace and Gromit in the household, although mine were on VHS, because I think I'm a little older than you. And yeah, because they had The Grand Day Out, which was when they went to the moon, and they were chased by the worst invention in the world, a disgusting, horrific fridge.
Yeah, I don't really know what it was. Like, I don't know what it was for or what it was doing there, but it was like coin operated as well. So. Oh
yeah! Oh my god! Because I haven't watched the shorts in years, and I've been intending to go back on them, and it's just fun to try and recollect them. I was talking with my friend the other day about them. Because both of us agreed that this like weird coin-operated fridge that lived on the moon is fucking terrifying.
Oh, it's really scary. Yeah,
it's like rusty and like aggressive.
It just tries to beat people up with a baton.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
But wonderful, adorable. The way the cheese was like, I guess animated is the word. It is so satisfying. Like, it's so satisfying.
Oh, yeah. Animated food always looks better than real food.
Looks good.
And clay food. Oh. Clay food looks even
because it's
better.
Like tangible,
yes.
Isn't it? You can like
and it's
feel
like
yourself.
soft and yeah, you know what? Especially cheese, when like cheese and clay don't really have that dissimilar textures. So.
It's very true. And then you had a close shave, which
we had the wrong trousers first.
Oh, it was the wrong trousers.
Wrong trousers was 95, I think.
Wrong Trousers was very famously home to Feathers McGraw, which a lot of people online have said, does anyone remember that penguin from Wallace and Gromit? It scared the shit out of me. And a lot of people have responded saying, the penguin was fine, it was that chicken that I couldn't get behind. Which is great.
Yeah, they were two different. Again, two different people. Come on.
Two different, but so scary when that penguin, like when Gromit's hiding in the box, I think, when he's got like binoculars or something, he's looking at the penguin, and it's like across the street, and the way it would walk, it was like stop, like terrifying.
It's so sinister as well. Such a sinister character, yeah.
And I'm bringing all these up because they'll tie into where we get to the Curse of the WereRabbit, because we're sort of late 80s, early 90s here, and then Curse of the WereRabbit is the mid-2000s, mid-2010s even. And, the trousers themselves was scary, the use of sound throughout this movie, because what's nice about them is that they're almost silent features, but they're also not. Does that make sense? Like, when you look at a Wallace and Gromit, you think it's going to be quite a silent movie. And, like, A Grand Day Out, I think, is mostly silent.
Yeah, well, the only character that really speaks is Wallace. Peter Sallis, who does an absolutely fantastic job playing Wallace, gets it spot on. But, yeah, Gromit's obviously famously silent. Feathers McGraw, silent. The weird fridge thing, creepy silent. But I know what you mean. Like, in my head now, imagining the noise that the trousers make when they move. It's that sort of mechanical noise. And
horrible.
Whoever the sound designer on that was, props to them, because it's such a recognisable sound. And I love silence in films, I think.
Yeah.
To use a more recent, and I'm sorry to invoke the Disney Star Wars trilogy, but the bit in The Last Jedi where they jump to light speed and all the sound cuts out. I think that's an amazing piece of filmmaking. And
where they, spoiler alert, slice open Laura Dern.
I mean, if you've not seen The Last Jedi by now, you're not going to see it. Let's be honest.
I'm glad that you're citing it as a good thing, though. Because if you'd have turned around and said that you didn't enjoy The Last Jedi, this conversation would have had to have ended right now.
It's the best of the three. It's the best of the three.
God, yes it is. Conversation for another day, but no, you're absolutely right. The use of sound is so important in movies. It can be done so well and beautifully, and it can just be wasted, and it's never wasted in any of the Wallace and Gromits, I don't think.
Absolutely.
This one particularly, the wrong trousers, the sound of the rubber glove as the penguin slaps it on his head.
Yeah.
And these are things I haven't watched in at least 10 years, if not much, much longer, and I can still, like, feel the rubber as it slides over that penguin's head.
I think because you take away the dialogue, you have to pay attention to the Foley and the sound effects, and
it's true.
And it's brilliant. It's, you know, it's so clever.
Tangible.
It's so clever.
Yeah. I love it. And then A Close Shave is just as scary. This is what's wonderful about the Wallace and Gromit. It's like Bambi. Everyone thinks it's like twee and shit. And then you're like, do you remember that like pheasant that has like a panic attack and then gets shot out of the sky and flumps down in Bambi? That happens in Bambi, and it's terrifying and sad. And then the entire forest gets set on fire and they have a stag fight. It's frightening.
Yeah.
But people are like, oh, Bambi, it's like the epitome of Disney cheese, blah, blah, blah. And it's the same with Wallace and Gromit. You think Wallace and Gromit, you think, as you rightly said, warm. It's like a hug. It's like a cup of tea. But it always has this element of threat and sinister as well. It's very good at building atmosphere and very good at giving us villains that are not wholly threatening, but memorable.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think as well, because the setting of all of the films, bar the bit where they go to the moon, is this tiny little suburb of Wigan in like either the 70s or the 80s. So it's a very non-threatening atmosphere, but when you introduce characters like Feathers McGraw or Preston the robot dog...
Oh, fucking Preston.
Yeah, fuck Preston, right?
Dick.
Yeah, exactly.
He's so scary.
He's horrible. Again,
he's like abusive.
Yeah, he really... Again, the noise. I can picture the noise he made. Like, the bit where...
Like that squeaky, like...
It's the bit where he... it's revealed that he's a robot, and he just opens his mouth and he just roars at everybody.
Yeah.
It's so scary. It's really good.
It's like spindly Terminator fingers and like...
It's so Terminator. Why didn't I think of that?
It's only just come to me.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't he even get crushed like the Terminator does?
I think he does, yeah. So he doesn't descend into like a pit of molten lava, sadly.
No.
That would have been so much better. But yeah, no, Close Shave is really good, and that was what introduced us to Shaun the Sheep as well, who
is now more famous than his. It's like when Mario appeared in Donkey Kong, I guess. Like they just shot to fame.
Or when
like, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's like he is the Frasier to Wallace and Gromit's Cheers.
He is. He really is. He's had, 3 movies now? And a TV show?
Yeah.
And probably a stage show? And there's probably been a Shaun the Sheep on Ice? Like,
you absolutely know there's been like a shitty knockoff Shaun the Sheep on Ice that like bored parents take their kids to over like half term. It's like, oh, just take him to the fucking ice. Just show them his sheep on the fucking ice.
That used to be a sign of like greatness. Like if your thing was successful and good, it would end up on ice. Oh. Like that was the like how to measure the worth of your product.
I always think you've made it if you go to a fun fair and you see your product has been ripped off on like the shitty rides.
Yeah, someone's trying to draw your like
like Bart Simpson
copyrighted
on the side of a roller coaster. It's like, who's this? This is Brat Sampson.
Yeah, literally. Or like yellow-haired boy.
I love yellow fat man. He's my favourite.
Yeah, he eats the donuts.
Yes, yellow donut man.
I love it. Like all the knockoff Disney princesses. You go to a princess party and it's like, you can have Rose Princess or Shoe Princess.
You can have Fish Princess.
I love it. But so there were the sort of three main shorts that came out. Mm-hmm. Then I think we had Chicken Run, didn't we?
Yes, Chicken Run was the first full-length Aardman film, which did very well. I think that was 2000 that came out in. So Chicken Run is 20 years old, everyone.
Fucking hell.
Just take that in for a second. Everybody gets sad.
Mortality.
Everybody gets sad for a minute about how old they are.
That was obviously magnificent, and then I think the minute that finished and came out, they started production on this one.
Yeah.
Which is essentially it's a homage to horror, which you don't get anymore. And I mean homage, not like shit rip-off or shit remake. Or
you certainly don't
like
get
spoof
homages to campy horrors like the Boris Karloff films of like the Hammer horror stuff of like the 50s and the 60s, because
they're just trying to remake them, aren't they? Whereas this is very much a love letter to that sort of era.
Yeah. There is no Russell Crowe pretending to be Dr. Jekyll in this. Oh. No, not in sight.
Did you go and see that?
I saw it on TV
we
after
had
it came
this
out.
conversation. You don't watch things that are inevitably bad.
I'm sorry. It's my job, okay?
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, I refuse to watch that on so many principles. So this... Yeah, it's... They wanted to not give Peter... The shit people involved in movies, the, like, Harvey Weinsteins of this world, were like, can we not have Peter Sallis voice Wallace, please? And apparently, Aardman were like, no. So they went and got Ralph Fiennes and Helena Bonham Carter to like placate them, which still isn't a bad find.
I love that they're in this film.
They suit it.
Yeah.
And like, I have to say, and it's annoying that I'm going to say this, but when the names first came up in the credits, I was like, is Voldemort and Bellatrix Lestrange in a movie together, which is stupid and dumb, and like I don't even really care that much for the Harry Potter movies, especially the later ones. Controversial.
There's so many possible tangents to go off on this, but I'll
many.
I'll just leave it at the door.
Just put a pin in that for later.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
They are. It's weird. You almost don't realise it's them.
Yeah.
They're just having such a good time, and you can hear it through their like voice. Like, I'd forgotten how genuinely funny this movie was.
Oh, it's so funny. It's
like
I'm a big fan of kids movies that are also funny for adults, not in like a sort of dirty joke hidden kind of way, but when the humour is just so solid and
timeless.
Exactly, it doesn't need to be smutty, it doesn't need to be X-rated. It is just funny jokes and funny characters. Like the vicar in this film is so funny because he's just this big, over-the-top, exaggerated character who's obviously a little bit crooked and a little bit sort of shady in the, you know, he prays to God to help him like win the vegetable competition, which is such a like classic, almost like sitcom level character. But it never feels one-dimensional. It never feels like a trope. It's just a very well fleshed out, very funny, very well written character, and this film is full of them. And you know, it's funny when you're a kid because it's like, oh, it's the funny man with the funny hair. But then when you watch it again as an adult, you're like, no, this is genuinely a really well written character.
Genuinely funny jokes, as you were saying as well, like proper classic. Like, it is just funny. Like, I'd completely forgotten half of the jokes in this. Within like 3 minutes, we get to have I'll be there and then he gets like shot up into the ceiling. So he's like, ah, and then Bonham Carter's like, an R? I can't wait an R. It's an emergency. I was like, I had completely forgotten that joke existed, and now it is the funniest thing I've ever heard. And then immediately we're back to like, I would like to pay. Oh, well, we take cash or credit. No, you idiot. Like, just really, my hair, no, these are rabbits. Like, just, like, almost Carry On type humour.
It's just,
and like,
it's a very
so British.
Yeah,
that's
what, you know, I sort of hate the people who are like, oh, you know, the British sense of humour is the best in the world, blah blah blah. But obviously, no, that's just not true, because every sense of humour is valid. But there is definitely a distinctive British humour, and this and all the Wallace and Gromit films, I think, encapsulate that sense of what the British people generally tend to find funny. And the setting, as we mentioned, is so British. It's so like that mundane sort of Hot Fuzz almost. Yeah, oh, that's a great village comparison. Yes. And like, but so different to Hot Fuzz with how they use the setting, but such a good setting for comedy because it's almost meaningless, as you were saying. Like, what the hell? Why are we watching a movie about a vegetable growing contest? But to these people, it's the most important thing in the world. Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's because it's so self-contained. I mean, we live in a Hot Fuzz county. Yes, we're both from Suffolk, so we know the pain of the giant vegetable competition. How important it is. Come on. I think because it's so self-contained, because like the world outside of this village doesn't exist to these characters. Wallace, you know, he's this great inventor. He built a rocket in his shed, but does he use it to make millions, or does he use it to, like, you know, does he go to NASA? No, he goes to the moon to eat some cheese, because he's just content with his life. He's just, you know, he just wants to invent a machine that, you know, gets the right thickness of cracker or the right temperature of tea. It's very simple without being boring, because the motivations is very clear with these characters, and you're allowed to fully buy into the setting and allowed to fully buy into the idea that all these people love this vegetable competition. It is literally the only thing they live for. Yeah, which I think is a line from the movie. It is, yes. It's one of the women. People. One of the women in the church. It's all we have. It's great. Gromit looks to camera like a lot, and I'm here for it. Gromit is so iconic. Gromit is, and I say this without a hint of irony, one of the greatest fictional creations of all time. He is. Because he never says a word, but you know, you can tell so much about him, and his character is so consistent across everything that Arbon have done with him, and he's incredibly likeable and incredibly investment worthy from an audience perspective. You really do feel for him in this film when, you know, his best friend, his you know, confidant Wallace, is in danger and he's just trying to save him. Oh my god, when you think, and you don't for a minute when you're an adult, but when you think Wallace has died at the end of the movie, God, I was nearly in tears, like, because of how it was affecting Gromit. It's so awfully sad, and if they were to ever kill off, like, it's just not plausible. They're a perfect comedy duo. You've got the straight man, and the like fool, I guess, and yet they're both endearing, and they're both, because unlike Laurel and Hardy, where when I used to watch it as a kid, I would be like, I don't like Oliver Hardy because he's mean. And Laurel's just innocent. There's none of that here. They're both innocent. It's just that Wallace is a bit, not even thick, just a bit
I don't even know what... He's just enthusiastic, and Gromit's like, okay, well, let's just calm down a bit, shall we?
In this film, he's horny as fuck, because he's just like...
So weird. That's the one thing about this movie.
Lady Totlington.
That I was like... Ooh, that was uncomfortable. When Gromit when Wallace turns into the WereRabbit at one point, and...
yes, where Gromit's
dressed as the lady
rabbit,
girl rabbit, and Wallace and I get it because it's drawing into the themes, as we all remember from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, about how the true monster within the man is like a sexual predator, and the times of the Victorian era was very oppressive in that sense, and blah 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 blah.
This
blah,
is
blah.
the deepest analysis of Wallace and Gromit anyone has ever.
I genuinely think they were... You could read it as like, look, we're homaging all of these great monsters. The Jekyll and Hyde thing is that he's more of a monster when he's the monster, and monstrous behaviour can be seen as being a sexual predator, or even just like an innocent version of that. Is there an innocent version of that? You know what I mean? A bit more horny, as we've said. But the idea of Wallace squeezing the tail on the lady rat, it just made me uncomfortable. It really did.
Well, there's the bit where he squeezes the tail and Gromit sort of slaps him around the face, and Wallace doesn't recoil. It almost fires him up a little bit.
That's it. That's what I don't like. It's
very uncomfortable.
I like them feisty kind of attitude that we've thankfully gotten rid of in our movies. That is just so vomit-inducing, and it's here because it's very carry-on, and it's very
carry-on,
sort of that vibe. But I am just like, I hate it. Thank you. I hate it. That's the one bit, just his... Because also I was like, didn't he get with the woman from A Close Shave? And then I remember she hated cheese, so no, he didn't.
Not even Wensleydale?
No.
What's wrong with Wensleydale?
I'm very impressed that you remember it so well.
I can quote probably about 60% of all Wallace and Gromit related media off the top of my head. It was a real struggle watching this film, not just recounting all of the dialogue as I went along.
Oh yeah, you should see me in front of the Philosopher's Stone. I know 90% of that.
Oh, don't like Harry Potter, eh?
Don't like the later Harry Potter movies.
Right, whatever, sure. Philosopher's Stone, we all know you mean Half-Blood Prince, come on.
Please. Philosopher's Stone is an iconic piece of cinema, and the best Harry Potter movie. There I said it. It's out there in the world now. Do with it what you will.
That's on record now.
They never give Wallace a girlfriend officially, which is nice, but he fancies so many and has sort of romantic interludes, if you will, with so many different people. How old is Wallace?
Well, it's like the first two films, Grand Day Out and Wrong Trousers, there's no romantic element at all, but everything since, there has been a romance element, because Close Shave you had Wendelene, who owned the wool shop, Curse the Were-Rabbit was Lady Tottington, and A Matter of Loaf and Death, which is the most recent and probably final Wallace and Gromit piece of media, is basically entirely about Wallace's love life and his relationship with Paella, the serial killer.
I don't think I've seen A Matter of Loaf and Death.
Oh, okay. Check it out. It's very good.
Yeah,
it holds
we've got
up
it.
very well.
I will watch it.
Yeah, definitely watch it.
Yeah, in the later ones, they seem intent on giving him a love interest, and it's a bit like, he's more than this. He's got his friendship with his faithful dog.
That's what I don't like that they feel like they have to keep going down this path. Obviously,
especially as he never actually gets with any of them.
Well, not that we see.
Yeah, true.
If you want to try and animate a stop motion sex scene, by all means, go ahead. Man. But I think they have more sense.
These are not the characters to do that with.
Oh God.
Also, it'd just be arduous and so bizarre, wouldn't it?
Can you imagine
you come into
being
work
on
every
that
day
set?
and you get 3 seconds of footage done in a day, and it's just oh no, I don't even want to.
No, let's not. I had a particularly nauseating sentence lined up, but we'll just forget that. We'll shelve that. Moving back on. Yes, the Wallace's love life. I guess maybe I could do without it in being constant, but I don't think it detracts from this film. I think it's a nice. If you're going to go back to those olden days, like the classic. those classic elements of cinema where it's like, you know, the eligible woman, but she's, you know, in the grasp of this horrible man, Victor, who's played by Ray Fiennes, very well played by Ray Fiennes.
Very well.
And Wallace, who is the complete binary opposite of Victor.
Yeah.
I think that sets up quite an interesting dynamic, and it's ever like Lady Tottington is just this prize to be won. She serves a very important part in the film.
Yeah, it's true. Like, especially when you're going to have a feature length, you do need to have all of these different things happening, and it completely makes sense for the tone of the movie as well. It allows a nice King Kong bit at the end.
Yes.
It's such a good horror homage. As I was saying earlier about establishing atmosphere, like, they do the sort of old monster movie stuff so well with the, like, when Gromit is alone in the van.
Yes.
And you just keep hearing things and seeing things and stuff gets broken down and then, like, the monster... But you don't see the monster for a while. I don't think you see the monster properly until you know who the monster is.
Yeah. You don't see it properly until about an hour in, yeah.
Very clever, like, dupeness of the audience. And I think when I first watched this, I can't remember how old I was, but I remember going to see the Wild Thornberrys movie.
Oh, what a film.
Well, yeah, it's brilliant. But you've got the Wild... It's very much like an episode of Scooby-Doo. You've got the Wild Thornberrys family, and then you got... I think it was Rupert Everett playing like a... like a guy, and he turned up and he was like, oh no, there's poachers around. And I was like, oh no, who could they be? And obviously the only people in the movie are Rupert Everett and the Wild Thornberrys. And everyone in the cinema was like, well, it's Rupert Everett.
Obviously
Rupert Everett's the poacher.
Everett, yeah.
And I was like, shooketh when they revealed that the poacher was Rupert Everett. I was like, oh, it was him, but I thought he was the good guy. Like, I genuinely remember being like shocked. And this movie, I think if you were young, I mean, you'll have to tell me when you were 8, did you, because they set it up where you think the rabbit in the cage is the one that is the WereRabbit, and you just think that it's been Wallace, because they do a nice touch where, like, he's been at the cheese and he's knocked the thing off, which is why the rabbit gets away with a bunch of stuff. This is very unhelpful for anyone that's not seen this movie. But it's very cleverly done, where they're like, dun 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 dun. Who is the rabbit? Even with the footprints, where you think it's going down into the hutch downstairs, but it's not. It's going into Wallace's bedroom.
There's a great...
Did you fall for it?
Well, when I was a kid, yeah, absolutely, because it's this great bait and switch. It's like...
that's the word.
They even show, you know, earlier in the film, you know, the hutch containing... Well, the rabbit is also called Hutch.
Which is... the best character in this movie.
Exactly.
We'll go on to talk about him later.
Like, it shakes and the door bursts open and you think, oh, well, no, that sets that up quite nicely. And they could have easily have just done, you know, Wallace and Gromit accidentally create a sort of giant rabbit thing.
Easily.
And then they wrap it up like midway through the film, or so you think. And there's this brilliant moment where Gromit has followed these big rabbit footprints and it looks like they're leading to go downstairs, to go down to the basement. And as he's finishing up bolting the cage and building this big secure prison for Hutch, he closes the door and you see the footprints carry on. There's this brilliant bit of dramatic irony where you see it before Gromit does, and it's really well made. It's like...
It's so good.
Yeah, a properly good plot twist, great third act setup for the final bits of this film. It's really, really cleverly done. And
it is, and it didn't... It didn't, as you said, it didn't need to. We would have bought a much lesser movie than we got.
Yes.
We would have been happy with that. But they went one step beyond, as they always do.
Yeah.
And made it brilliant and clever and thoughtful.
Because it adds a whole new dynamic when Wallace is the you know, Wallace has become the problem he's trying to solve. And then you get Victor is obviously out to kill the rabbit, but he also wants to get rid of Wallace, so he ends up coming to a very morally dubious decision that he's just going to murder Wallace. Like, actually kill him.
Literally shoot him with a bullet.
With a real gun. Which, you know, on reflection, pretty harrowing for a kid's movie. It's like, Mummy, why is Voldemort trying to shoot Wallace?
Well, you know what Voldemort's like.
Well, exactly, you know. It's a really well thought out script.
Yeah.
That it puts Gromit in a very compromising position as well, because this really tests his intelligence, but he's got to not only catch the rabbit, but also save his friend.
Keep him safe. Yeah. And make sure that the rabbit doesn't come to any harm whilst not getting eaten by the rabbit himself and also whatever. Protecting
the fact that Wallace is the rabbit, because the rest of the village will, they'll turn on him if they find out who it is. It's a lot, you can take it on the surface as a silly kids film, but there's actually quite a lot going on here.
It's honestly so good. The music is by Hans Zimmer.
Yes.
Like, what?
I know, right? Well, it is a film, so there is a 50% chance that Hans Zimmer has done the music for it.
It's either going to be him or Howard Shore.
Or John Williams. One of the three.
That's true.
But yeah, the music's fantastic. Like, I love the Wallace and Gromit music anyway. Like, the opening theme is such a joyous piece of music. It's fucking great.
It establishes what you're about to watch so well.
It sets the tone so well. Yeah. And it's like when you were mentioning earlier the bit where Gromit's in the van, the musical score there is very subtle, but it's very it builds the tension so well. It is something ripped straight out of a sort of a thriller almost. And they do a great job of having these silly elements mixed in with the very serious elements. So you get the feeling of tension, but ultimately your brain goes, oh wait, it's not very tense, it's a giant rabbit. So you're not scared, but
they're very good at doing that. They're very good, because there were times when I was watching this and I was like, I am a little bit unnerved by what I'm watching. And if I was any younger, and especially if I'd watched it when I was very young, I was scared of everything. I'd have probably been scared of it. But they very quickly, they're like, genuine threat, and then so quickly they're like, they break it. So when Wallace is transforming into the rabbit in the forest, it's so frightening, and it's being witnessed by Ralph Fiennes and Ralph Fiennes' little dog. It's genuinely so scary when he turns into the rabbit. Very sort of American Werewolf in London vibes. But then we cut to Ralph Fiennes' dog. He's like, let me in, Gromit, to the van. And Gromit's just very slowly like, no.
He just puts the lockdown on the door. Really slowly.
And it's so funny.
And there's the bit where like all his clothes are flying off, and he's doing the transformation, and all his buttons of his shirt fly off and hit Victor in the face, and then just when you think it's over, his underpants hit him in the face as well. And it's properly juvenile humour, but it's so funny.
And it's so needed, because it is so scary. Because also the fur on the rabbit is not something we're used to seeing in this stop animation, claymation sort of thing. So it's quite unnerving with how sort of different it is.
Yeah, you're right. Because even the actual rabbits, they aren't furry, are they?
No.
But I'd never thought of it like, I don't know how they did that.
It's clever. I read somewhere probably in the IMDb things, where they were like, they had to be extra careful with it because they couldn't leave any fingerprints on the fur, and it was, you can't obviously baby wipe it off as you can on the claymation.
I mean, claymation just blows my mind. Like,
shout out to anyone that can be arsed with claymation.
It's like
3 seconds of footage in a day.
Fuck right off, quite frankly.
Like, come on. The absolute painstaking to just like lift an eyebrow. The amount of work that is going to have gone into that. It makes me. I'm sweating just thinking about it. It makes me
upset. It makes me wonder what went wrong in Nick Park's childhood.
Why he needed to focus so much. Yeah,
this level of masochism.
Arduous work.
I know. I mean, completely applaudable. And he deserves every recognition he's got. The dude's got like 4 Oscars, and he's good. He earns, except give him more.
Yeah.
Just give him all the Oscars, come on. But
take them all.
Yeah, but the thing about Wallace and Gromit is, obviously the first short, Grand Day Out, was done to show off the claymation. It was done to show off this is what we can do with the animation style. But ever since they've done that, they haven't needed to show off as much. So they've focused on the writing and the stories, even to the point where the writing and the story and the characters are so good, you sort of forget how much work has gone into it. You're not impressed by it, not in a bad way. But it's almost second nature. Well, of course it's made of clay. It's not something that's made of clay that just happens to be funny. It's a genuinely funny, good, well-written piece of cinema that happens to be made of clay.
is all about timing. So to get clay pieces to do like slapstick, again, my brain hurts.
Yeah.
Just thinking about how on earth they managed to like, because it's stop motion, but you're moulding clay. It's like the whole thing just fucking blows my mind. It's exhausting.
Yeah. I need to lie down after just thinking about it.
Literally, I'm like in pain from just thinking about it. So hats off to everyone involved who's ever even attempted claymation. You are a lot more patient than me.
Yeah. Also, maybe get a different hobby. No offense.
just
play Mario Kart. Just
let your brain die for a little. Shout out to Ray Fiennes' dog.
Philip.
It's probably called it's Philip.
Philip the dog.
Stupid.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful, and my favourite bit, and I remembered it because I was like, is this problematic? I don't think it is.
I know exactly the bit you're talking about.
When they're on the rooftops of Tottenham Hall, in the dogfight planes, and Wallace is in a what's it called? I want to say blue bottle, but it's not a blue bottle.
Yeah, Gromit's in he's in an RAF plane, and Philip's in
it's called something.
Is it?
It's the one with the red target on it.
Yeah, and Philip's in he's got the Luftwaffe logo on the back.
We were watching it, and I was like, is that a Nazi plane?
Is that dog a Nazi?
Is that dog a Nazi? It's not a Nazi plane. I think it's just a German, a World War I German plane, I believe, or World War II, because that was the one that was fought in the air.
Good history.
Not a Nazi plane, don't worry. But they end up both in Gromit's aeroplane, and they're fighting. They're struggling and fighting and biting, and then the thing runs out of money. And Gromit's rummaging around in his pockets for change.
Somehow he has pockets, even though he doesn't wear clothes.
This is the thing that's so wonderful. Of course he has pockets, just in his dog fur, because it's just so ridiculous. It's wonderful. So then, of course, Philip loses patience, stops him, pulls out his little purse, rummages around for 50p and pops it in. And the whole thing is very sort of effeminate and meaningful and sort of pointed. And I was like, are we making fun of effeminate behaviour, or are we making fun of the juxtaposition of this horrible bulldog? But he has been a bit prissy throughout. And then I was just like, shut up, it's funny. It's genuinely funny.
Yeah, that's the bit that I remember most from being a kid, finding that utterly hilarious, because you're right, Gromit's rummaging around in his pockets for change, and then Philip is just like, all right, I've had enough of this. He gets the purse out. There's the perfect amount of time between, there's a pause. He then pops the purse open with a single sound, and Gromit's just looking at him and
again, not judging, just very confused,
because it's just unexpected,
because he'd been so violent up until this point.
He's literally trying to kill him.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think it's the absolute sort of pause and difference in tone to then obviously resume with the perfect timing.
It's like the the big strong muscly man with the squeaky voice. It's it's not fun.
I've read too many articles about how Disney villains were based on the fop, who was meant to be the sort of gay character, if you will.
Yeah. Someone's been spending too much time on Vice.
On the internet. Yeah. So every now and then I'm like, oh, is that offensive?
I'm going to go to my blog spot and I'm going to write about this.
Yeah. I'm going to get very angry on Twitter about this. But there's no need, it's fine. In fact, surprisingly, this movie, considering how much it takes from sort of classic British humour, which you can argue is usually horribly sexist and quite racist, this isn't offensive at all.
Yeah.
And it came out in 2005, so it so easily could. Even wonderful people who you love and admire were saying stupid shit back in 2005, because we didn't realise it was stupid shit back then.
Yeah,
but
everyone knows feminism wasn't invented until 2013, so...
Exactly, until Emma Watson said it was. So, it's really nice how good this movie is, if that makes sense.
It holds up so well.
Yeah.
And I think it will continue to hold up.
Definitely.
Because it is timeless. It
is literally timeless.
I mean,
like it.
Yeah, like all of Wallace and Gromit is just timeless, and I think I'm glad that if something is going to survive, if something is going to be sort of the lasting legacy of British cinema, I want it to be Wallace and Gromit, because
definitely
it's such a great ambassador for everything that should, all the stupid stereotypes about this country, but in a nice way. Rather than a racist way.
Yeah, it's so true. And they don't rely on anything that was like colonialist. They don't appropriate anyone's culture. They're not sexist. They're not racist. The closest we get is sexism, and even that's like quite harmless.
Yeah. It's just a thoroughly lovely film.
And they don't date themselves. They don't bring out a mobile phone, and they don't. They sort of use this technology. No one has the internet, and if they do, it's very sort of like basic dial-up, and that's the best way to do it. Like, even Disney have started getting really bad at dating their own movies by making like
how bad is
references.
Wreck-It Ralph 2 gonna look in
10
years time?
Yeah, it just seems ridiculous to do that when you know that it's not gonna last.
Yeah.
And your whole thing is to make money, Disney. We all heard Michael Eisner, but this doesn't do that, and it's brilliant.
It's brilliant. It's just so nice to just sit down and switch off and watch something that is very silly, but I hate the idea that just because something is silly, people automatically tar it with that brush, and people think, it can't be clever, it can't be good. I love silly humour.
Clever.
I love silly humour.
Silly humour is clever because you have to go beyond the obvious, and you have to go beyond. You're not allowed to swear, and you're not allowed to make any lewd references. Like, it's always funnier to hear people not swearing.
Yes.
Like, can you imagine in Home Alone if Joe Pesci was allowed to just talk like he was in Goodfellas, but he wasn't. So hearing Joe Pesci, someone who clearly wants to swear, after being beaten up by Macaulay Culkin, going like,
why are you order?
Yeah, it's like much funnier than actual swear words.
So much funnier.
Question to a Wallace and Gromit fan.
Mm-hmm.
How does he get cured?
The power of cheese. And love.
There's no explanation. That was the one part of this movie that I was like, wait, what? He falls off the thing, and then he turns back into Wallace, and then he's revived by some stinky cheese, and then he's just not going to be a WereRabbit anymore, and no one can tell me why. And Hutch doesn't revert back to being a normal rabbit. Pinning that when you talk about Hutch, but how does he get cured?
The way I see it, the way I explained it to myself, was that when Wallace fell off the roof as the WereRabbit died.
Okay.
But Wallace survived, and he just needed to be roused by the stinking bishop, the smelly cheese. So that's the best explanation.
Because even at the time I was like, I don't care, it's still a good movie. It's fine.
The movie puts in enough good work to not worry about stuff like that.
Yeah, it's fair.
I think. But, I think had they actually come up with a serious, technological out for this,
they just needed Gromit to have caught one of the green floating things from the laboratory into a needle, and then just inserted it into Wallace's arm or something. I'd have bought that. I'd have just been like, yep, fine, no worries.
I'll accept the explanation they gave it, because I think it had to involve cheese somehow, because Wallace loves that cheese.
Yes, he does. Yeah, that's fair. So Hutch is sort of what happens when you mix Wallace with a rabbit. So that this rabbit sort of gradually becomes Wallace over time, and he only says things that are mentioned in previous movies or this movie. He doesn't say anything new, which is a really lovely touch. It's whoever came up with this idea. They were like, we'll have Wallace as the WereRabbit, but then we'll have a rabbit that's slowly turning into Wallace. Whoever came up with that idea, have a medal, have an Oscar, oh my God, it should be creepy as hell, and yet it is the funniest part of this movie.
I think they realised how funny Wallace is as a character. Because if you just take all the little, like, Wallaceisms that he says, like, there's a bit where he's, like, Hutch is just there, and obviously he only speaks in, like, sentence fragments. So he just goes, cheddar. And it's just really funny.
He'll be, like, driving a car away from something and being like, oh, a nice bit of Wensleydale, and, like, completely out of context. Like, instead of, like, I think that's what it is. It's the way that he's not saying anything to do with anything that's happening, and he's just like, oh, I do like a bit of cheese.
I do like a bit of gorgonzola. It's just...
And it's this rabbit, like, in this oversized tank top, and it's just genius. It's so good.
It's so... I hadn't quite realised how good a bit of the film that was. But again, they didn't need to put this in, but they went above and beyond to include this really funny touch.
Gifted us with Hutch. I'd forgotten, and I was reading the IMDb cast list, and it obviously Peter Sellers is at the top, and it says Wallace/Hutch, and I was like, what the fuck is Hutch? Is that what he's called when he's a were-rabbit? Like, I'd completely forgotten that aspect of the movie, and the minute he, like, walks out of his cage and is like, ooh, I was like, oh yeah! It's so good.
Oh, like, Wallace says things that other human beings don't say.
Yeah.
Like, there's a line in this film where Gromit's driving the van really quickly, and he just goes, slow down for pity's sake, you'll buckle me crunions.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Who knows? But
those
you know
aren't words. And I think then giving, like, his weird sentences to a giant rabbit in a vest. That is surreal humour at its absolute finest. That's Monty Python would be proud of that.
It is, and again, so British. When he's, like, inventing, and Wallace is like, "Oh, look at me
yes! go!" It's so clever. It's, I hadn't realised how much I liked Hutch, but yeah, and he's only really in it for about 20 minutes.
Not even that. Probably about 7 if you, like, break it down.
But I mean, on that note, the film itself is only about 80 minutes long, isn't it?
It's an hour
such a short
and 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And yet it manages to establish 3 acts, perfectly formed, brilliant characters that we know the ins and outs of, perfect use of the sort of classic mechanical sort of things you see in all of these sort of movies, especially with the Wallace and Gromits, the different ways to get themselves out of bed and stuff.
Oh, yes.
Like, it's just so well paced, so well structured. Like, it's just... It makes movie making look easy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's so
not.
tight as a script. There's not a single ounce of flab, a single bit of guff.
Like, nothing's wasted.
This is a sirloin steak of a movie. We've
is.
trimmed all the fat, and it's just the juicy bits in the middle, and
it's just perfect.
Yeah, I love this film. It won the Oscar for best best animated.
It should.
Too fucking right. Yeah, exactly.
Like, Disney haven't deserved that Academy Award in years, and they keep fucking giving it to them.
Everyone.
Like, Toy Story 4 was not that good.
Oh, again, another tangent.
Especially on a year when Klaus came out. Fuck off. But yeah.
My favourite bit of criticism for this film I've seen is I think it was in the same category as Spirited Away. And everyone was like, oh, how did Spirited Away not win the Oscar? And I was like, have you seen Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit? It's the perfect film.
Spirited Away is very good, but, like...
It's not Wallace and Gromit, Curse of the Were-Rabbit.
This is brilliant. Like, it's so good. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just perfect. Any final thoughts?
I mean, I could just sit here and quote lines from the film, but I think I'll do that in my own time.
I was literally thinking that I just saw Peter Kay on the cast list, and I was like, oh, remember when that woman's playing the organ? And he's like, not now.
Mental.
Mental.
It's one of my absolute proper feel-good films. It's I don't watch, like, a great deal of films. I'm not a hugely filmy guy, even though my degree is in film and TV. I'll watch them when they're on, but I very rarely go out of my way to actually sit down and put a film on by myself. But I could watch this over and over again till the cows come home, because
it's so good.
It's just really nice. It's a lovely mix of nostalgia for me and genuine enjoyment as an adult. So funny, well written, tight script.
Yeah.
If you've not seen it, definitely check it out.
Oh my god, go and see it. How have you not seen it? It came out in 2005.
Exactly. Come on, people.
So long ago now.
Wake up.
Wake up and watch Wallace and Gromit.
Wake up, sheeple.
So tell us about your podcast.
My podcast is the Bad Things podcast that I host with my friend Nathan Packham. Every month we take a new topic. We alternate between audio and visual, and we review it. We focus in on things that have famously poor reviews. So our first episode was on Arc Music Factory, the record label that gave us Friday by Rebecca Black.
Nice.
We reviewed that in its entirety. We reviewed Grease 2, which was critically panned. Have you seen Grease 2?
I've not seen Grease 2.
Okay.
I think I'd like it if I watched it, to be honest.
I would watch it,
I like a couple of the songs. Michelle Pfeiffer, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what's to not like?
Absolutely incredible in that film. We reviewed Lulu, the Metallica and Lou Reed collaboration album, which is just dreadful. And our most recent episode, which is either coming out soon or out now, depending on when this gets released, is on a reality TV show from 2014 called I Wanna Marry Harry, where 12 American women compete to win the affections of a Prince Harry lookalike who is pretending to be Prince Harry.
I vaguely remember that.
It's insane. And we go into, they're quite long podcasts, so if you like your long form, dip in and out sort of podcasts, definitely check us out. We're on Facebook if you search for Bad Things the Podcast. We're on Twitter at Bad Things Pod, Instagram at Bad Things Pod. And you can listen to us on Acast, or you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts. Just search for the Bad Things Podcast and we should be there.
Boom. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
County buddy.
Yeah. Wow.
Woo,
Ipswich.
represent.
Yay.
This was an absolute joy to revisit. As I said, I completely forgotten that this movie existed, and it's fucking perfect. So take that, Spirited Away. I'm joking. I love you, Spirited Away.
Take that,
but,
Studio Ghibli.
Seen Curse of the WereRabbit. Another great movie for good-looking food, Spirited Away. Or most Ghiblis, to be fair. Or Ghibli, however you pronounce it. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
That's my absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And we will see you next time on Why This Film. Bye! You're allowed to say bye.
Oh, bye. Sorry.
And cut. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy Why This Film, why not head to iTunes and leave us a review? And you can now support Why This Film on Patreon from as little as £1 a month. Just head to patreon.com/Why This Film Podcast. You can find us on Facebook at Why This Film Podcast, on Instagram at Why This Film Podcast, and on Twitter at Why This Film Pod. If you'd like to come on the show and talk about your favourite childhood movie, email into us at whythisfilmpodcast@gmail.com.
Hello, darling. It's me, Tessianos, host of the ongoing comic book discussion podcast. And if I got a Halloween treat for you, this October I am hosting a horror comic marathon for 31 days. That's right, my frightful fiends. Every single day from October 1st to October 31st, OCD will review a horror comic to count down to the greatest holiday ever conjured. You can follow OCD on Instagram at OCD Podcast, Facebook at facebook.com/OCD Podcast, and Twitter at Ongoing Comic Pod. It's going to be a hauntingly good time, so be there, or just be there. Ooh.